All right. So is my screen visible? Can you see my presentation as well?
Yes, we can see everything. We can see your screen, your
All right.
presentation.
All right. Just All right. So I welcome everyone here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. This is really a great motivation for me to share my learning with you all. So to begin with, as you all already know, that today's topic is teaching with questions, teaching through questions. How we as teachers can use the how our we do ask a lot of questions, and we will see um, how we need to go about it in a just a slightly different manner to get much better results. So to begin with, I welcome you all formally in today's session, and so I'm sure that like me, you have also spent countless hours in just thinking how to make students active learners in the class. So, just all right. Um, is my screen visible? Because I cannot see the screen right now. Is my presentation there?
Screen screen is visible, but we cannot see the change in the slide.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I have not yet changed it. I will do
All
that.
right.
Okay, so I'm sure that you have also spent a lot of time, so keeping the students awake in the class during our discussions, during introducing a new topic, during teaching, and and we actually want them to think and connect and then of course remember what we have taught them. So I found that one of the most powerful technique, which is quite underused, is the idea of questioning, and it's the questions which we ask. So sometimes we just ask random questions which do not actually meet or provide, they do not help us achieve our objectives. So today we are going to explore how questioning can become an engine for deeper learning, how questioning can help students to think deeper, to think critically, and how um, extremely small changes in our learning in our teaching, in the way we ask questions from the students, can make big shifts in the way students think. So okay, so here's a quick poll for you. What's the question you hear yourself asking the most in the class? What's that one question? I have listed a few here, but is there anything else which you can come up with? So which one would you select? A, B, C, or D? If you can unmute your mic and just say which one, because I cannot see your comments.
I think B.
B. Okay.
Yeah, same B.
All right.
Any
So we
question?
yes. So and this question which we usually ask right after when we have explained something, right? And now we will see how this question, a little bit change in this question can lead to better results. And this is something which we will unpack in the course of this workshop. So we'll explore how to use questions with more purpose and power, not just to check the understanding, but to further build understanding, and um, and also to increase the retention, to improve comprehension. So So the basic structure of today's workshop would be that we'll be reflecting on our current habits around questioning. We'll also understand why most classroom questions don't work and how we can change it to work for us. Then we'll also learn practical strategies to improve engagement, comprehension, and retention through questioning. So we'll use question. So we'll see how questions can be used to improve classroom engagement, students' comprehension, and then retention of knowledge. And then um, finally, we will explore how to frame questions effectively, as well as how to respond to how to provide feedback to the response given by students to our questions. So let's dive in. And so what are questions? What kinds of questions do we ask most often in our classrooms? And if someone can answer, what makes a question powerful or engaging? And basically, what are basic like, how would you define questions?
I think question is being asked for more clarity or to show the curiosity to know more about that content. Uh, this is my understanding about the definition of the question.
Yes, you are right. You are right. And the kinds of different questions which we ask, which we have already just unpacked a few. And so again, I will revisit these questions later on. In fact, we will ourselves be able to answer this as we move into the content of today's workshop. So now, bringing the word questions or questioning skills to our specific teaching and learning scenario. Why are questions important in teaching and learning? Why do you think a teacher needs to ask questions, or why do you think a student? So like you just shared that perhaps students usually ask questions when they want clarity in a certain concept, for example. But what about teaching? Why do teachers use questions?
I think Rajda is right that to cross check their understanding, to assess their learning, to know what the
Okay.
learners have learned.
Yeah, okay. And so I've just listed a few reasons why questions actually matter, especially in our context of teaching and learning. So we, as teachers, ask questions to stimulate thinking, to check for understanding of students. Miss, I'm getting requests to.
Hey Aisha, I would like to Assalamu alaikum everyone, and
Walaikum salam.
glad to see you presenting Aisha. Uh, I was actually had raised hand in for your previous question where you were
Okay.
asking. Uh,
Okay. Actually, I
actually,
can't see the Zoom window. That's why.
nahin, the team is there to support. So you saw it. So I'm now answering. I was only lowering my hand, but the thing is that regarding questions, the important part is कि क्वेश्चन ही सिर्फ जो है सोचना कि व्हाट इज क्वेश्चन या क्या क्वेश्चंस हम लोग पूछते हैं जरूरी है ये भी सोचना जरूरी है कि क्या पूछा जा रहा है बिकॉज we as teachers remain at the lower level of the questions. We do not go for critical thinking questions और बच्चे जो हैं वो भी ज़ाहिर है उसी level पे रहते हैं. And asking questions and framing questions is something very very important. So the children actually learn it from the
True.
teachers.
True. You are right. And this is actually what we would unpack. If okay, I am getting requests for to accept the request for people waiting in the waiting room.
Yes, the team is handling all these things. You
Okay.
may carry
Okay.
on. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Miss. Thank you for the clarification. All right. So, as you just shared, sorry, I cannot see your name because I do not have the Zoom window opened in front of me. So, anyway, you are right that usually in the course of a complete lesson, in fact, if we actually write down the questions which we ask our students, we would realize that we don't. Sometimes even for days and for weeks we don't ask any question which helps or which fosters critical thinking, and that is exactly what we are going to unpack in this session, inshallah. So coming back to why questions matter: they stimulate thinking, check understanding, they guide learning. Questions with scaffold learning, they help students to understand certain concepts, they promote discussion, encourage critical thinking, support retention. Like some of you also responded, so these are some points which I was able to jot down. um, and so uh, so now in the context of teaching and learning, we know why questioning actually matters, right? In our specifically in our context. So now let's take a closer look. um, let's take a closer look and a closer look into how we are actually, like, we are currently using the idea of questioning or the skill of questioning in our classes, in our lessons. So but before we dive in, I want to ask another question. And since I cannot see the chat box, I would appreciate if you can unmute yourself and then respond to the question. But first, you need to think and then you share. So the question is: what is the most common and repetitive question teachers ask at the end of a lesson? And most of us ask this, like, regardless of the subject we teach, regardless of the level we teach.
I think the most of the teacher have asked, is that clear?
Yes, true, true. Is that clear? Did has everyone understood? Did you all understood today's lesson? Have you all
Yes.
understood? Yeah, and like, even after studying this concept, I still feel that out of habit I sometimes end up asking this question: that have you all understood? Now, uh, now if you see now, did everyone understand? Any questions? Is today's lesson clear? Have you all understood? And we all have done this, and probably we still do that. Like I am saying, that now that I know how to question correctly or how to phrase my questions correctly, I feel, I have observed that I still end up making such, I would say, mistake. So moving on. Okay, so why do we ask some such questions? Any questions? Did everyone understand? Is today's lesson clear? Have you all understood today's topic? Why do we ask such questions? What's our aim behind such questions? What do we hope to achieve?
So we wanted to ask our students that have they understood whatever we have taught? Are they clear with the concept? Are
True, true.
they understanding our language? There are so many things we wanted to understand from the students' perspective, actually.
Yes, so we basically want to check for their understanding, and we want to see whether what we have taught is clear to them or not, right? And like I just mentioned, that despite knowing that these questions or this way of questioning is problematic, I still realize that sometimes I end up asking such um, redundant questions, and that is because, out of pure habit. Now, we all know that the students, um, that the students, even if they are not answering, or even when they are, like, for example, when I go in the class and I ask, have you all understood, like when after the lesson when I ask, have you all understood, so I know, and we all know, that most of the students don't even bother to answer this question, right? And even when they are answering in an affirmative, they may still not really understand, and still we ask, I would say, this useless questions many times during a day, during the course of a complete lesson, a complete period of teaching. And I believe we just do this to satisfy ourselves that, we are done for the day. So if when I ask my students, is everything clear, and my students say yes, miss, so I say that, it's my own, what can you say, my own self satisfaction, that okay,
And the
yes,
validation, actually, the
yeah, yeah.
validation from the students.
Yes, yes, validation that whatever I've taught, they have all understood and my objectives are being met. Right? However, the fallacy with this thinking is that sometimes students don't even know what they don't know. So when the teacher asks, are you have you understood, they don't know what they were supposed to understand. They, and of course, when they don't know what they were supposed to understand, how can they answer, or tell that they have not understood something. So the biggest shock is this. And then there's another element to this, that it's usually a yes or a no question. And the students know what the teacher wants to hear, so of course they just say yes. Most of them, at least, they just say yes. Especially the ones who just want to get over with it. They know that when the teacher asks what is not clear, they will again not have any answer. And therefore, since it's just a yes and no question, it does not promote, it does not foster any critical thinking. It does not help students to think deeper, to go deeper, and it does not help them to go into the higher order thinking stratosphere. So so I'll show you some research statistics. So research says that the reality of, like, I would say, the current classroom questioning is that 70% of teacher questions are factual or recall based. Also, teachers wait less than 1 second for responses. Not enough for thinking, not at all. And we will see what is wait time and what is the appropriate wait time according to each question, according to, like, depending upon the question. And so increasing the wait time from the 1 second which we usually give our students wait, and when we give the students a wait time of 3 to 5 seconds or more depending upon the question, how the quality of their answers improves, and how their answers reflect depth and critical thinking. Also, again, most questions are closed ended, they are closed, they are factual, they require just yes and no answers. And of course, I'll repeat that students know that what is the answer the teacher is looking for. Another thing is that I just came across this interesting idea uh, of guess what I'm thinking. So when we ask our students questions, we have one right answer which is there in our mind, and we want our students to guess that answer. So whether we, and if you realize that most of the times our questions are badly phrased, so how do we expect students to say that one answer of respond to a badly framed question, and respond by giving that one correct answer. So so while of course the intention behind questioning, while the intention is good because we genuinely want to know whether our students have understood or not, this method often fails. So we will just look So if you take a minute to read this, and then I'll continue with the presentation. Then we'll discuss, and then we'll continue. So I'm giving you 1 minute to read this, please. And this is, if you see, this is what actually happens in our classes, right? This is and this is such a like such a disappointment that as research says that some students can go through an entire school day, like one complete school day, whole day, and our students are there at school for at least 6 to, in some schools, 8 hours. So 6 to 8 hours they have not used their critical thinking skills at all. So they go on for an entire day, even weeks and even months, without answering a single verbal question, because we are not framing the question, we are not posing the right question which helps them um, to think critically. So this also tells us that, we ask countless general questions in every class, often without real engagement. But let's, look at another better way. But before we go there, let's dig into another case study. So all right, so another scenario rather. So when a teacher goes into a class, and then after the lesson or in between the lesson, the teacher asks a specific student. So for example, Ahmed, what is the difference between a lake and an island? Now, so this is the question which the teacher asks. Ahmed, what is the difference between a lake and an island? So what do you think, what happens next? If it's you who's asking the question, please unmute your mic and then respond. What do you think, what happens next?
I think Ahmad will start thinking on it to describe the difference between the lake and an island.
Yes, you're right. And what about the rest of the students?
They also try to process that kind of knowledge, or some students wait for that thing that Ahmed will give the right answer or not.
Yes, yes. And whether their turn would come, or they would,
Yes,
take a sigh of relief. So
yes,
the reality, unfortunately, the reality is that a lot of hands raised, if not a lot, but still a few hands raised. But then when they heard the teacher ask the question, and when it is specifically, um, when it's specifically, the student is named before even asking the question. So, Ahmad, what is the difference between a lake and an island? So the other hands slowly recede, they go down, and all eyes are on Ahmad.
yes.
uh, Yeah, and in
Yeah.
fact, not all eyes, some eyes are on Ahmed. The rest of the students would just, um, would just take a sigh of relief that their names were not called, and the question
Yes.
is not their problem, and neither
Yes.
is the answer, because it's
Yes.
Ahmed who is the unlucky student, and so we don't have anything to do.
Yes.
Now, being teachers, we would kind of justify this, that when Ahmed is thinking of the answer, the rest of the students too are thinking of the answer. However, I like, uh, this is, kind of a utopia, kind of a situation that we could wish for. However, it's not the reality. The reality is that maybe one third of the students are thinking about an answer. The the rest are just glad that it wasn't them, it the teacher did not take their name. And if I want you to just think in your mind, how we as teachers, don't we as teachers ask questions the same way, especially when we are like, apart from specific strategy of cold calling, which of course is necessary as well, but when we want to know the level of understanding of our class, of our students, then we just stop their thinking. So how can we as teachers ask questions the right way? Do you think, can anyone suggest what do you think is the right way to ask the question? If this is not the right way, what can we do differently?
I
If you
think that we should not mention the name of a particular student.
Okay, yeah. So that's one of the effective strategies to improve engagement. And
Yes.
when I'm saying engagement, I mean that engagement not in terms of physical engagement, not that they are moving or they are verbally answering or they are writing their answers. Rather, even critically thinking is engagement. So we want students to engage with with the content which we are teaching them. So even making them think critically is also a way of engagement. So so Mary Bird an suggests that we ask a question. Okay, it's a very simple approach. Um, and she proposes that teachers simply ask a question. So you just throw a question to the whole class. Like, for example, the question which was posed to Ahmed specifically in the last scenario was, what is the difference between a lake and an island? So here, without taking the name, the teacher poses the question to the whole class, and then, number one, wait for 3 seconds, at least 3 seconds, and then she takes a name. So, what do you call it when in? Sorry, the question was, what is the difference between a lake and an island? Or if you can see on the slide, the teacher may ask, what do you call it when an insect kills itself? So this is the question. She pauses for 3 seconds, gives students time to think, and then she takes the name. This helps all the students automatically, since they know that it could be anyone. So this is the only time where they would think. And of course, so, and when they are thinking, it means we have achieved our objective of engaging our students with the content. So by doing this, all the students will would automatically be thinking and engaging with the question, and they will be thinking about the answer. And only when a child's name, a student's name is taken, like here, when the student's name is taken, Samina, then only their thinking would stop, and then they would think that, acha, theek hai, ab, like, meri turn nahi aaya, I'm safe. So but during these 3 seconds, at least 3 seconds, everyone is thinking. And this idea is known as wait time, which is extremely important. Unfortunately, we as teachers, since of course we are the strength in our classrooms, and we are overburdened with finishing our curriculum in the given deadline. We have to finish the lesson, and so we rush into things without realizing that what we are teaching actually is not it's not reaching its goal. We are not able to meet our objectives. So taking a pause of at least 3 seconds for closed ended questions, and more than 3 seconds, maybe 8 to 10 seconds for open ended questions, where they really need to analyze and evaluate a certain situation. Okay, so there's another thing, so creative teachers would also so with this technique of wait time, and taking the student's name after posing the question, they also do it in a random fashion. So when I'm saying it's being done in a random fashion, um, it's it's not that when once a student has answered, they would not get another chance. So keep it random, so that even the students who got a chance to answer, or they even if it's correct or incorrect, they still know that their turn could come anytime. Another way to question effectively, and then again increase engagement, is to use the widely used, and I believe the most simplest and easiest strategy of think pair share. So yeah, so this again, now think pair share also, this helps all students to have an opportunity, number one, to think, then to share as well. So even when they're not sharing it with the teacher, they're at least sharing in their safe space. They're sharing it um, with their with their friends, with the person sitting next to them. So at least they are sharing it with someone. So also this really helps with students who are shy to speak out in front of the class. And so when of course we cannot plan questions in we cannot have all the students answer questions at the same time. At times we can do that, but not in our regular practice perhaps. But then at least we should ask a question, pause for 3 seconds, and then take the student's name, so that everyone at least thinks. And of course this helps in fostering critical thinking. Now, by getting students to participate is only the first step. The the real power of questioning lies in what it does after they answer, how it shapes their understanding. So so moving to the next section of today's session, which is improving comprehension. So now we have transitioned from improving engagement through questioning, and now we have moved into improving comprehension. So like the slide says, it's not just about getting more hands in the air, it's about guiding thinking. And when I'm saying thinking, i'm i I mean critical thinking. So far we have explored how engagement can be improved using wait time, using a random fashion, using think pair share. Um, but but now let's move on how we can improve comprehension. And here I want you to tell me, why do we need to improve comprehension. We'll move to um, how questioning helps in improving comprehension. But before that, I want you to tell me what what do you think? Why do we need to improve students' comprehension? Please unmute to respond.
Kindly raise your digital hands so we will unmute.
Why do we aim for comprehension? Why is it that we want students to understand? And what is comprehension actually?
I think to understand in a deeper manner, or to understand each and everything about the content.
Okay, yes,
Um,
yes. And so, if you can see the slide, why do we as teachers need to focus on comprehension? To like you just said, clarification of ideas, connecting new information, new knowledge with prior knowledge. Then we need our students to better comprehend in order to improve their metacognitive skills, where they think about their thinking. So they are self monitoring, they are thinking about how they can improve their own learning. It's not just feedback from the teacher, but it's feedback and reflection from their own selves. So they cannot achieve this level unless their comprehension level increases. And then of course, in order to retain knowledge for a longer period of time, if comprehension is not there, if understanding is not there, then of course there's no point in the retention of, or the length of retention of new knowledge. So there are a few strategies. While there are many, there are just a few strategies which I shortlisted here. um, so I'll just quickly go through them. Most, you will realize that, in fact, for the whole of my session, you will realize that there's nothing extraordinarily new in the session. It's just what we already do, but we just need to tweak it a little bit to make it more effective. So if you see, I'm sure most of, in fact all of you, would be using warm up questions in the beginning of every class, and we know why we do that. So when we do something consciously, when we know that this is the reason why we are doing this, when we do this, when we do it mindfully, then we will of course achieve our desired results. So the first one is warm up questions, which is used to activate prior knowledge and set a learning mindset. Then guiding questions, so scaffolding learning. So questions can improve comprehension when we use guiding questions. So rather than just telling the answer, giving out the knowledge to the students, giving out the information or the content right to the students, we can ask them questions, and it would help them to self explore learning, and self explore the concept, the idea which we want them to teach. Okay, so and then we have another strategy, clarifying questions. So again, here, this is the way we ask questions to clarify whether our students have reached the desired level or not. We ask, have you all understood? So rather than asking that, like I mentioned in the beginning of the session, that I would revisit this idea. So here, if you see, so rather than just asking, have you all understood, you just take out one idea and then ask, what does this specific idea or word mean? This way you will understand, this way you will have a record as well, that okay, so my students have reached up to this level, this is the level till which they have reached. And so I'll have, I'll have data. Okay, and then, or you could even ask, can someone explain this concept in their own words? So again, summarizing, which you will see in the next slide as well, that paraphrasing and summarizing. So when students paraphrase their learning, or when they when they summarize what they learned in a course of a complete lesson, or even as a mid plenary, they are able to retain that information for a longer time, and they are also able to comprehend and to improve their comprehension, and more importantly, we as teachers are able to track their progress. And then we have prediction questions. So rather than just asking factual questions, for example, if you are reading a novel with them in literature, so you can ask, what do you think, what will happen next in the story, what how is the plot going to unfold? So just ask them predict questions which require prediction. And of course, when they're predicting, they could be wrong. However, to make sure that it's not just wild guesses, it's more about so ask them to provide justification for their prediction. They should probably provide you with textual evidence to support their prediction. And then we have reflective questions, so make them reflect on their learning. So maybe at the end of the class you can have an ticket or a plenary. What do you find most interesting or confusing in today's lesson or about this specific topic? You must have heard of 1 minute papers. So basically the students summarize uh, their learning of the whole lesson in just 1 minute. Then the last one is self questioning, again metacognition. So train students, we need to train through. Of course, this won't happen just you cannot just go into the class and ask them to think for themselves. This needs a little bit of training and guidance and scaffolding. So initially you would require to take them by their hand and guide them. Do you think you have understood this? And then so eventually students themselves would reach at a place where they would only require the support of the teacher and not direct instruction by the teacher. Now now helping students understand and comprehend the content deeply is vital, of course, but we also want that understanding to last. We want that understanding, we want that concept, that knowledge to retain for a long period of time. And not just and not just retention of knowledge here, I would say even the application of knowledge, transfer of knowledge. So whatever is being taught in the class, whatever concept is being given, are they able to apply that in their real life? So while comprehension is of course the foundation of learning, retention is what ensures that learning is traveling out of the classroom, so it's traveling from the classroom to the real life. And so how now we will explore how we can improve their, or how we can support long term retention, long term memory, and how we can use questions to improve the or to increase the length of their, what can you say, their memory skills rather. And so bringing this brings us to the next section, improving retention. So now again, here are a few strategies. Again, I will just quickly go through these, and if you see, there are examples as well to help you um, frame questions according to your subject, according to your grade level, the students you teach, according to the level of critical thinking of your students. So the first one to improve retention is retrieval practice. So just simply ask students to recall information, and it helps them to revisit what they heard, what they learned, and then bring it to their present current memory, and then give the answer or respond to the answer. Then there's another interesting one, spaced questioning. So again, you would see It's just the names which are being given to such questioning strategies. I'm sure you already use, not most, all of them already. So spaced questioning is re-asking key questions over time instead of just once boosts retention. So now, for example, you teach one concept, and then probably after a few days, or maybe the very next day, or maybe after a few weeks, you can revisit, make them remember, build a connection that, remember, we did this last week. What do you think, like, for example, how would you describe the tone here? So um, in literature, how would you describe the tone, the tone here? So okay, so now again, you would rephrase this question suiting to your which suits best to your own subject area, to your own grade level and students. And then we have cumulative questioning, which builds questions that revisit past lessons in new contexts. So so how does this again, an example from literature, because I'm a literature and language teacher. So for example, how does this character's conflict remind you of the one in chapter 2? So you are connecting one character's motivation, or one character's actions, or their dialogues, or what they are doing, to something which happened in the beginning of the novel, for instance. Then we have elaborative questioning. So ask students to explain, justify, or connect, which helps them process deeply and remember longer. So why do you think the author chose this setting? So again, think, make them. Now again, over here, when you are asking elaborative questioning, you are going to give them more wait time. It's not going to be just 3 seconds. It should be at least 7 to 8, or maybe 9 to 10 seconds even, depending upon how recent the knowledge you are asking them to bring into their present mind. Then we have peer questioning. This is something I think ये हम बचपन से सुनते आ रहे हैं कि किसी और को भी पढ़ाओ तो uh, तुम्हें ज्यादा अच्छा याद हो जाएगा. So again, so the same thing. So you encourage students to ask questions from each other, and this again helps the way students ask questions from each other. So if you have ever done this activity in class, they really sometimes they end up framing so beautiful questions that it would actually surprise you that how and we underestimate our student. So let them do that. Let them make questions, let them frame questions, let them ask those questions from each other. This would actually be a learning opportunity for both the person who is asking and also for the person who is responding. And then the last one, exit questions. So what is, again, 1 minute paper, or questions which involve students to reflect over their learning. So for example, what's one idea that stuck with you from today's lesson? So something which consolidates your lesson, which concludes your lesson, as well as helps the student to summarize. Now again, at this particular time when we are concluding our lesson, most of us end up asking, have you all understood today's concept? So rather than asking that, you can ask, what's one idea which you found interesting, for example, or what's one idea which you still find confusing, or what's one idea, like it's mentioned here, what's one idea that stuck with you from today's lesson? So these are a few ways to help students retain information, retain knowledge for a longer period of time. And so we now we will also explore a strategy of asking questions, which is known as the Socratic questioning. And we will see how when we conduct a Socratic seminar, which we will unfold what it is, we will see how it helps, how just questions, plain questions, simple questions, no no wordy questions, no questions with difficult vocabulary. So simple plain question, how can those simple plain questions help students go deeper into the idea, into their learning, and how it promotes and fosters critical thinking. So one extremely powerful questioning tool is the Socratic questioning. And it it's basically when you ask questions upon questions. So rather than accepting the answer, you further, when a student responds to your first question, you further ask another question. And then when you receive another response, you further ask another question. And you would notice, okay, so one way to go about this is that you should have a list of a few questions prepared beforehand, before you go to your class, of course. But then, of course, any emerging questions which you find, depending upon how the student is responding to the series of questions, you can always incorporate those questions as well. So when we use Socratic questioning, our aim is not to get the right answer, um, because it's not about receiving one right answer, but it's about making the students think critically, think deeper and deeper, and even challenge their thinking. So when we keep asking, if you look at the screen, there's an example as well. So um, so if the teacher asks the main question, um, give a character trait for the main character, and the student responds, the main character is brave. So rather than teacher just accepting this answer, that okay, yes, you're right, make them go deeper into the knowledge, into the idea. So instead of just saying, yes, you are right, or even just asking, why do you think this, help them into where um, pave way for their thinking. So how you can do that, so rather than asking just plain why or accepting the answer as it is, you can ask, what makes you say that? When the student says the main character is brave, you ask, what makes you say that? And then further on, you can ask, is bravery always a good thing? Can you think of a time when doing nothing is braver? Or do others in the story see the character in the same way? So the teacher is not actually approving any answer, but she is only fostering and um, and enhancing the critical thinking skills of students. Students keep on going deeper, and this also helps them become um, uh, to actively use their metacognitive skills, because they realize that okay, my answer could further be questioned upon. So and then, of course, now continuing with Socratic questioning, Socratic seminar is when you dedicate a complete lesson, a complete period, like for example 40 minutes, 60 minutes period to the Socratic seminar. So there will be an inner circle, there will be an outer circle. The students who are in the inner circle, for example, are going to ask questions, or they would be the responders, whichever way you want to do. And so it's not the answer which the questioner is looking for, it's the question upon question which we aim for, and then of course leading to critical thinking. Now, so we are done with engaging in deeper discussions like Socratic seminar. um, from asking questions to responding them thoughtfully. So it's not just plain surface level answer which we are thinking, but also we are enhancing their critical thinking skills. We are promoting critical thinking skills over here. So here, now we are done with engagement or through questions. We are done with comprehension. We are done with retention levels. We are done with how we can enhance critical thinking, how we can make them dig deeper into the information or the knowledge which we want to give them. Now comes another interesting part, and that is that when the students respond, what is the next thing which we do? How do we respond as teachers? So not just limited to Socratic seminar, but other than that, the different types of questions which we discussed earlier. So how can we as teachers react to the answers which the students give, and how we are able to further encourage critical thinking rather than shutting it out? So responding to again, I have listed a few strategies. I'll again go quickly because we all do this. It's just that we need to do this more mindfully now. So how can we as teachers maximize learning? So number one, we use feedback strategically. So it's not always you know so you if you look at the first um, strategy, so you redirect, you probe, and you further extend. So the examples are also given. I'm not reading, otherwise will not be able to finish the session on time. But I'll just go slow so that you are able to read these, and you are with me. So in when you are redirecting, you're just gently you're gently guiding students toward a more clearer or more accurate thinking. Then when you probe, can you say more about that? So you are asking follow-up questions to clarify their thinking. When you think that they are it's something which needs further clarification, you further probe, not by giving them the right answer, but through your questions. And then you further extend. So you can extend their response by asking them a question, or you can bounce that response to another student. For example, like it's mentioned here, that's a good point. What if we applied that idea to the next chapter? So okay, and then the next thing is thoughtful praise. So please avoid good job, correct, excellent, great. Again, this is something which we tend to do out of habit, which we really need to change as mindful teachers. So instead of this, maybe you can compliment the student. However, you can also say, I like how you supported your answer with evidence from the text. So the student exactly knows what is being appreciated, right? Again, over praising can really be dangerous, I would say, because it does not help students to go deeper. They do not take the risk to think critically. They try their best to play safe. Then the third strategy is handling wrong answers. So when the students give you an incorrect answer, rather than just shutting them down by saying that's incorrect, that's wrong, no, this is the wrong answer, rather than doing that, you can further build up upon their answer by saying, okay, that's why would you say that? Okay, so for example, that's an interesting perspective. Does anyone want to add another view to it? So this way, rather than just saying no and shutting off their thinking there and then, it's better to bounce the question to another student, maybe, or even ask probing questions so that they are able to so that which helps them lead to the correct answer. The next is encourage the culture of thinking, not just answering. So it's not just about who answered quickly, or who raised their hand, or who answered, or who provided a correct answer. It's also part of their learning and part of how they are thinking critically, using their critical thinking skills. Use think You can also use think time. And now think time again, when you are bouncing a question from one student to another, you again need to give thinking time, wait time to that student as well. So again, it should not be 1 second or maybe less than 1 second. Again, 3 seconds at least between each question. um, so um, so now moving on to our final section of today's session. um, all these questioning strategies which we discussed so far for improving engagement, for improving comprehension, retention, how to provide right feedback, there's one hinge, there's one there's one vital element, and would anyone and which is still left, which we have not discussed so far. Would anyone want to share? There has been a very long silence. I feel awkward. So if you can raise your hand, um, and you will be unmuted so that you can share. Anyone? What do you think? What is still left?
I
So we
think your last question to all of us, that must not be like that. Is that anything clear to all of you?
okay. Yeah. So while you
You
are
have to end up with that thing, that you have to also develop that critical thinking, and this kind of skill to all of us.
Yes, you are right. You're right. So basically, to reframe our questions, right? To reframe the questions which we already asked. So basically, the craft of effective question of framing effective questions. So how do we actually go about crafting? And why am I calling it a craft? Because it really is a skill. Developing good critical questions which helps fostering critical thinking really requires mindfulness. It really requires an effort, especially when you are beginning to do that. Once you are in a habit, of course, then it becomes, it comes naturally then, of course. But then that's why it's like a craft. It's a skill which you develop, the skill of questioning and the skill of using appropriate questions, framing appropriate questions, wording them correctly, um, depending upon your objective. What do you want out of those questions? What is your objective behind asking this question? And what's the level of your students? What's the again what subject you are teaching, and what are the comprehension levels of your students? So so the quality of a question often determines the quality of the thinking it inspires. So the better our questions are, the better framed our questions are, the better the students would be able to think. So this brings us to our section of today's session, which is the craft of framing effective questions. And um, and so again, I have a few strategies. We all know open and closed ended questions. um, Depending upon your own class, subject, level of students, your own objective, you would use either uh, a mix of simple to complex questions, concrete to abstract. Here I would just explain how a concrete and abstract question differs. So if you see, a concrete question is, what do you see in this picture? So something which is there, which is present. And an abstract question would be, what emotions does this picture make you feel? Now, the wait time for a concrete question would can be 3 seconds, but the wait time for this abstract question would at least be 5 to 6 seconds. Okay, now moving on. I discussed this phenomena as well. Guess what I'm thinking? So these are like least effective. So try avoiding these such questions. Then use friendly language. Don't make such complex questions, or don't make them so wordy, or so make sure that the length is age appropriate. They don't feel overwhelmed by looking at the question. So make the language, the vocabulary of the especially when if the students do not know a certain command word, then please do not use it unless you have explained it to them how to answer such questions. And then of course, adapt to their age, their prior knowledge, their context. Avoid rhetorical questions because they don't uh, since they do not require an answer. The students also don't bother um, to even think about that, so it's just a waste of time actually. And then use, of course, a variety of questions, so a mix of questions, especially if you I'm sure you would know about Bloom's taxonomy, so the levels of Bloom's. So use lower order thinking question as well as higher order thinking questions. So use a mix. Use complex questions, use simple questions, use long questions, use short questions. It should be a combination. Then okay, then pre-planned and spontaneous questions. So you should have a list of questions which you prepare beforehand before going to the class. And then of course, if you feel that you need to ask something else other than what you have already planned, of course go for that. Use a mix of lots and hots. um, so this brings us to the end of our journey. So I'll just give a quick recap. So we haven't just looked at questioning as a classroom tool. We have reimagined it, so reframed it as the very engine, the very thing, the exact thing that drives student thinking. So framing the right question, to asking it in the right way, to providing feedback in the right way, improves critical thinking, fosters critical thinking. It improves engagement, it improves retention, and then transfer of knowledge as well, transfer to the real world. So from asking better questions to structuring them for maximum participation, to using them to deepen comprehension and retention, and finally how to respond in the ways to keep the thinking alive and not just shutting them off or discouraging them by the feedback which we give them. um, so I think it won't be wrong if I say that questioning truly is the heart of good teaching, effective teaching. So before we end, I so I just want you all, if you can see on the screen as well, I want you all to like it's a very short challenge. So try framing one question. And okay, so even before that, um what do you think you can take away from here? So how you can reframe the questions, how you can incorporate wait time, how you can change your questioning style to use the same questions but using wait time, and just changing the timing of the question also matters. And you will see, inshallah, that you are able to achieve your objectives in a much better and smoother way as compared to when you were not quite mindful of your questions. And so before we wrap up, just a small task. What is one change you will make in how you ask questions starting tomorrow?
Lubna, you can place this question in the YouTube comment section so that people can add, because we should now
Yes.
conclude
Yes.
as it's already 15 minutes above time. So thank you so much, Aisha. It was a
Thank
wonderful
you,
session.
miss.
I just
Thank
would
you.
like to add that सिर्फ teachers को खुद question बनाना नहीं सीखना. They should actually encourage students to ask better questions. And
True.
when students actually start asking questions and write questions, and they are able to draft them properly, so wo bhi as learners, they become critical thinkers. So it's not
Yes.
just the teachers who have to improve their questioning skills. We should, as teachers, try at the uh, next level, which is making our students ask good questions.
True. True. No doubt. Would anyone want to share anything? Otherwise, we are done with the session. Alhamdulillah.
If anyone want to say something, they can unmute their mic as well. I think there is no question, or maybe you can see the comments or the things on YouTube as well. So thank you so very much, Aisha Noorullah.
Thank you. I
It
really
was
enjoyed.
really, really thought-provoking session today, and definitely we can all relate today's session with our teaching practices as well. And definitely, it's our habit to ask these kind of questions. So from
Yes.
now onwards, we can think about it for a few seconds to frame the questions and to wrap up the daily classes and promote the critical thinking in the students. So thank you
True.
so very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone,
Thank
for
you.
listening, for to have this session today and to be with us. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for the next Power Pack session by Saturday, inshallah. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.